Hi, in this tutorial I will show you how you can create unit test in Visual Studio. So here is the contents of this tutorial. First, a short overview of unit testing. Then I will show how you can create unit testing in Visual Studio. And we will use the built-in unit test framework in Visual Studio called MSTest Test Project. And then I will show a basic example how we can do unit testing for a simple application. So I will use this application as a foundation. It's a basic calculator where we enter two numbers and click the add, and then the answer will be put here in this text box. So that's our application, and then we will create a simple unit test to test this functionality in this application. So the basic concept within unit testing is to compare the results when running a method with some input data, as known as actual data and expected data. So in all unit test frameworks, they include a method called r=. So then we just compare the expected value with the actual value that is calculated, and if they are not equal, then you can type a message here: the test failed because of something. So if these two are not the same value, then the unit test will fail. So here you see a basic example that we will create later. So here is our calculator application, which contains a method called just add in this case. And the input is just two numbers, and then it adds these two numbers and returns the answer. And then the answer is presented in the graphical user interface. And in order to test that method, we could create the following test method. So here we define the object that we have created in our code, and then we just try with two numbers. Number 1 set to 4 and number 2 equals to 5. And then in this case, since these two numbers are added in our method here, the expected value should be 9. And then we just run our add method that we have created here, and if the result from this method is equal to 9 in this case, the unit test will pass, and if the output of this unit test is something else than the expected value, the unit test will fail. It is also a good practice to use this AAA pattern, short for arrange, act, and assert. So then in our test method that I showed in the previous slide, then we divide into arrange. Here we just define the variables and set some values. Then we create the object. Then here we specify the expected value under act. And then we just run our method here. And then finally, under assert, we use this r= method to see if the expected value, in this case is 9, is equal to the result that we get here in this when we run the actual method. So it was a spelling mistake here. The result here and the result here should be equal to the expected value that is specified here. And if they are equal, the unit test will pass, and if they are not equal, the unit test will fail. So basically that's the basic concept of using units, create and use unit tests. So then let's start creating this basic example in Visual Studio. So we start by just creating a simple calculator application where you have two numbers, add them, and the answer should be put in this text box. So then we start by creating our basic calculator application. I just select create a new project in Visual Studio. I just use the Windows Forms application. I use this one, Windows Forms app. Click next. I just have a project here on a folder here on my hard drive in a temporary folder here. So then I can call my application calculator app or something, and then click next. Select the latest .NET version. And then we start creating our graphical user interface. I will just use some text boxes. Number 1. So here I will enter the first number and here the second number, and then I will present the answer in this text box. And in addition, I will just have a button like this. So then basically we should enter a number here and a number here and click this button, and the result should be presented here. So then I finalized my graphical user interface. I just added some labels, etc. And now we should create a class that are actually calculating these two numbers. So then here under my app, I just right click, create, add, and a new class. I can call the class calculator or something, and then it will be put here. I can also put it in a separate folder if I want to, but basically this is my class called calculator. I just change it to public, create a basic method called add, and the input should then be two numbers, so I can just call it add calc or something, the method, and it should be a public method, and return value double, or it could be just int in this case, just adding two numbers. So then int number 1 and int number 2 like this. So basically that's the more or less this method. So then we just type return number 1 plus number 2 like this. So basically that's our method. It's a very simple method, just adding two numbers, and then we will implement this method in our form here. So then I just double click on this add button, and then here I just use that method we just created. So that's basically it. So in the click event handler for the add button, which we have here, create the following code. I just define two variables, number 1 and number 2, and then since the user are entering a number here and a number here, I just convert that text box to into this number variable and number 2 variable. So I convert from this text to an integer, and then I define this object of this class I have created here, this add calc. So here I create an object of this class, and here I'm calling this method called add calc in order to add number 1 and number 2, and then put the result back in the answer, and then this answer are converted to a string and put into this text box called answer here. So let's just run this application to make sure it works as expected. So it's basically a number here, 4 plus 6, and add should then be 10, so it works as expected. But now let's create a unit test for this application. So the first thing we need to do, so here we have our calculator app project, then I just go to the solution in order to create this test project. So I just right click, add new project, and here I just search for test, and then I select the built-in MSTest Test Project, and in our case we are using C#, so I need to select this one, click next, and then you could create a proper name for our project. You could call it calculator test or something, and click create. I use the same .NET framework, click create, and then by default this test class and test method has been created. And also if you see here on here I have created this folder where I was creating the calculator app, and here you see the calculator test project. And here is the solution. So now our solution contains of two projects, the calculator app itself and the test project. Now we can start creating a basic test method for our simple calculator class and this add calc method. Then I can just change the name also. I can call it test. So I just name it test calc add or something. And then inside here we need to start to create this unit test for this method. So typically we do like this. We have this pattern as was mentioning called the arrange, act, and finally assert like this. But before we start creating the code here, one thing we need to do is go to the calculator test project and then right click, add project reference, and then we need to add this calculator app project as a reference in the test project. So then just click OK here, and then you see it's added here. And by default we get some warning here. So one thing we need to remember, we need to right click on the calculator test project, select properties, and make sure that the target framework is the same as our calculator app project, and also the target OS. By default it's just set to none, but we need to set it to Windows like this, and then we just close it and this warning disappears. So now we are ready to finalize our test project. We also typically here need to add using. So then using calculator app like this. Now we can start creating our test method. So under arrange we just type these numbers, so int number 1 and then int number 2 like this. Wait, sorry. Int number 2. So now we have defined these two numbers, number 1, number 2, and then we need to just create this object, which is calculator like this. So then we have created the object for our calculator class. Sorry, like this. So that's the arrange. Next, under act, we just need to, of course, we also need to specify some number here. So assuming number 1 is equals to 4 and number 1 equals to 7. Like this, and then under act here we specify this expected value, and in our case now the expected value should be 4 plus 7 meaning 11, so that should be the expected value. And now we just calculated the actual result then by using calculator dot and the name of our add our method, which is int result equals to calculator, and then dot and the name of our method, which was add calc like this. So that's the act. So now we have arrange here and act, and finally we just use assert, and then we use the built-in method which is part of this assert class, and then r equal, and then expected comma result like this. So basically that's it. So now we have created our first test method, and we have used this arrange, act and assert pattern. So here we just define the input to the method number 1 and number 2, sets of values, and then here we specify or create the object for our class. Here we specify the expected value in this case, and here we call the actual add calc method, and here finally we just check if the expected value is equal to the actual result from our method. So that's it. We just save it, and now we can go to the test menu, select the test explorer, and basically we can just run our test. We can have one test, we can have 10 tests or hundreds different unit tests in our application. So then just click in this button in order to execute the unit test. And then you see, and the test is passing, it's green like this. So now you see our test calc add unit test method was successfully. We can go into our, let's go to our calculator app project here, and then assume we are going to do some, create some error in our code. So instead of actually adding these two numbers, I'm multiplying these two numbers. So I now have introduced a bug in my application. So let's go back to our unit test, which we have here, and run these tests once more in the test explorer. And we see our test calc add unit test method has failed, because now we are getting a result that is not the same as our expected value. So basically that's how you create and use unit test in Visual Studio. So let's summarize. We was creating this basic calculator application in Visual Studio, just adding two numbers, and then the answer should be put in this text box called answer. Then after we created our calculator app application, we needed to create a unit test project. So then in our solution in Visual Studio, we just right click and add a new project, and then select this MSTest Test Project. Then after that we needed to add a reference to our calculator app project. And then if you got an error message like this, there's some conflict with the .NET versions, we need to right click on the calculator test project and make sure that the target framework and the target OS is specified according to this. So we need to select the same .NET framework as in our calculator app application, and the target OS should be Windows. So then so here you see the add calc method in our calculator app project, just adding two numbers. So here I have introduced a bug. Instead of plus, I'm using multiply, and then we create this test method using this AAA pattern. Here we arrange by defining two numbers, creating the object. Under act, we are specifying an expected value and are executing our add calc method that we have here in our calculator app application. And finally, under assert, we are using the R equal method to check if the result here is equal to the expected value. If they are equal, the unit test will pass. If they are not equal, the unit test will fail. So in our case, our unit test will fail because we have a bug in our method here. Instead of adding, we are using multiplication, and then 4 and 7 will not be 11 in this case, and our unit test will fail. So that's basically how you create and use unit test in Visual Studio. Then finally, we are using this test explorer to run one or more unit tests that we have created, and then you can in this window easily see which tests are failing or which tests are passing in our unit test project. So basically that's all. So thank you and goodbye.